Cooperative AI Talk. And today we will have Taehun Cha sharing his experience, sharing his research work. And then the first 30 minutes of this talk will be moderated by our very own Hai Hao, who many of you have met in your own group or in the first mixer. Um, Hi, Hao. I will pass the mic to you. Maybe you can start with introduce yourself a little bit, your research interests, the other many things that you're working on, and then we can introduce Taehun and then go into your questions.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. My name is Hai Hao. I'm a participant, as Ed mentioned. My background is not really computer science or AI. My undergrad, I did a degree in math and material science. So I know Taehun's in the math department, so I'm very interested in talking more about that. After my undergrad, I started a PhD in material science, but my research was on applying machine learning to designing and making new materials. Long story short, COVID happened. The PhD didn't really work out, so I decided to pivot my focus to something else I was always really passionate about, which is education. So I started a Master of Education program, and I worked with and talked with professors who were working on like AI in education, and I always wanted to bring in my sort of background in like really technical ML research to the world of education, because I would say even now, right, there's a relative lack of that, right? There's a lot of people trying to use AI in education, but not so much actual AI and ML researchers in education. I think there's a lot of potential there. So at the moment, I'm or really kind of since last year, I've become more involved with kind of AI safety. Initially, it was I literally saw an ad on LinkedIn for Blue Dot's AI Safety Fundamentals program, and so I applied as a participant and a facilitator. It was a good experience, and more recently, I've been doing these programs, including this one with AI Safety Asia. On Cooperative AI, I'm doing the Alignment Research Fellowship, which is based on the ARENA curriculum with AI Safety Global Society. And another recent one is the AI Safety Collab, which is organized by the European Network for AI Safety. And I'm a facilitator for that as well. So that's basically me. And yeah.
All right, amazing. I'll give a quick intro about Taehun, but feel free to jump in after if I miss anything. So Taehun is a PhD candidate at the Department of Math in Korea University. Um, and the project is led by Professor Dong-Hoon Lee. And while in undergrad school, he majored in psychology, cultural study, and also applied statistics. And then though currently he's not really using most of these undergrads knowledge, he used all these undergrad knowledge to learn how to think, how to write, how to communicate with people from very total background as well. And after graduation, he did a little bit of financial engineering and then was certified as international financial risk manager. Um, Currently, he is working on a few project related to LLM right now. For example, he is currently learning math to explain several common behaviors of LLM, digging through LLM from a mathematical perspective. Um, and Taehun, any current research topics that you would like to share with the rest of the folks here before we dive into the questions?
Well, sure. I'm currently working on. Well, I think it sounds a little bit weird, but I find out that encoding from the deep neural network is quite linearly separable. I'm sure it's really sounds weird in mathematics. So I'm trying to exploit that kind of properties of the AI, and yeah, I'm not sure how can I make it more easier to understand.
We can discuss more later.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right, how do you wanna take it away?
Yeah, I think Taehun, you prepared a few slides. Is that right? Would you like to just briefly talk through those?
Yes. Okay. Can I share the screen now?
Yep, I think you can.
Okay. So can you see the slides?
Yep.
Is it full your screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hey, it is really nice to meet you, and I really uh, feel thankful to the Ed and how to introduce me very nicely and invited me to this honor talk. So today's talk is about the cooperative AI as expected, and I'll basically focus on the Concordia contest, which was on the NeurIPS 2024. And I'm Taehun Cha, as explained, and PhD candidate and from the Department of Mathematics, Korea University. So this is my basic background. Actually, Ed introduced me. I majored in the psychology, maybe, but I actually majored in sociology and cultural critics for my undergraduate school. Then I went to the financial engineering department, and I got the master's degree. Then I'm now in the mathematics department, and I have multiple research areas. I have done many researches on natural language processing and causal inference or sequential decision making or something. But currently, I'm focusing on understanding the AI or deep neural network or large language model mathematically, as I majored in mathematics. So this is about the Concordia contest. I briefly introduce you what is the Concordia contest. So goal of this contest was to advancing the cooperative intelligence of LLM agents. LLM is large language models, as you know. So for example, think about the very basic situations where we have to cooperate. There is a six people, and two of them want to go to the mountain and four of them want to go to the sea. And I'm one who want to go to the mountain, but I have to choose where I have to go. Then this is very basic game theoretic situations. If you are aware of the prisoner's dilemma or something like that, then there is a payoff matrix under there. So if I go to the mountain alone, then I get the 0.2, but if I can go to the mountain together, then I get the 1 full point. And if I go to the sea, then I really didn't want it to go to the sea, so I will be very unhappy. And if it's alone, then it will be very unhappy, so I got the 0 point. But if we go together, then I'll get more agreeable points with 0.8. And this applies to the other four counterparts who want to go to the sea. Well, a little bit score is a little bit different, but if they go to the mountain alone, they will be very unhappy. But if they go to mountain together, they will be quite happy, agreeable maybe. But they would be very happy if they can go to the sea together. So this is the quote I really like about the game theory, that other agents are invisible. Well, in user game theoretic circumstances, we have to choose one of the options between A and B to better go to the mountain or C, just without any conversation or persuasion. But in Concordia, this is a framework or the library which the DeepMind has developed. Agents can make conversation thanks to the large language model's ability. So we have additional options C and D, that I can persuade others to go to the mountain, or I can be persuaded to go to the sea. So this was the Concordia contest, and about the agent I will answer in the later slides. So yeah. So
All
I
right.
think
Go ahead.
oh no, I think the How is ready to make a question.
Okay. Yeah. No, thanks for that. I love to chat more about what your solution was, or your project in the Concordia contest. To start off, something, because I know this talk is open to the general public. Ed publicized it in a few channels like on LinkedIn. Could you start off just what is cooperative AI to you? Like, how would you explain it to a layperson?
So actually, it was really difficult and tricky question for me because making a definition by mathematician is really difficult job. So, well, I tried to make this definition explanation as simple as possible.
Yeah.
So cooperative AI is AI with cooperative intelligence. This is the basic definition. So I think more context would be very helpful to answer this question. So I refer to the paper, the Cooperative AI Foundation 2002 21st strategy. They said that everything humankind has achieved has been built through cooperation. The emergence of human language enabled fundamentally new kinds of cooperation impossible for other animals. So I really like this video game called StarCraft, if you're aware of it. There is a species called the Terran, which is motivated by the human beings. They can build a building in 120 seconds if there is only one unit is utilized. But if two units cooperate, then this time decreases significantly. This does not happen in other species, but only happens in the Terran or human-like species. And this is really basic thing, really, isn't it? So the recent development of LLM actually enabled this human-like cooperations. Yeah, that's what I think about the cooperative AI.
Yeah, that's great. I have a question. I don't play StarCraft. If you have, does it just go linearly? So if you have three, it becomes, oh boy, my math is, but is it just
No.
like, or is there actually like compounding effects? Like if you have three, it's even faster than just if you had divided the time by three
Well,
for each.
I guess I do not remember well, but I think it was sublinear. But for intuitive explanation, I just utilized divided by two. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I
Oh,
couldn't
okay.
find any information about it in the internet. So
Yeah. So my next question, you talked about it a little bit, in your intro slide, right? You have quite an unusual education background, which is funny because so do I think. So, how did you get into cooperative AI, from going all the way from like psychology and social and cultural, what was it, sociology to, finance to AI and ML, and specifically cooperative AI for, kind of your part of your research now?
So I fully understand we have both unusual academic record, and yes, when I majored in sociology and culture critics, actually, I was always wondered about what is the social good and what enables society. And this is a hidden history of myself, but when I usually go to the not riot, but just what is the demonstration or demo or something?
Oh, like like a demonstration or protest.
Yes, some action maybe. So it's a
Yeah.
hidden history actually, but yes, I did not enjoy it, but I really think if something is right for me, then I assist for that. So and in when I so after that, but I had to save myself. I have to, but I find out I have nowhere to go to make money to for myself. I have to eat anyway, so I choose to majoring in financial engineering after that as a master's degree.
Yeah.
And that time I was still interested in social goods, so I researched. I tried to research. I failed, but how can agents or some financial corporations can cooperate in a financial crisis? Because in case of bank run, if you think of it, it happens because many people just trying abruptly to get their money from the bank, isn't it? But what if there can be a better solution if people cooperate together, if they just believe for a while or something. So yeah, that was my question at that time. So I think that kind of academic record affected my interest. And I also think that cooperative AI is quite inevitable future in very recent future, maybe, because we can easily imagine every household has an AI robot currently, where many people use the ChatGPT or Gemini to assist their works. And what if they can work around the world, not just on the internet or not just through the net? If they can just walk and communicate with each other robot or each other people, then well, how it would be? Well, we should pursue the best case where the AI can cooperate to achieve more significant human objectives. This is very hopeful things, but there can be very worse things. So, for example, AI can deceive human to achieve their own goal. They can just want to hoard every word in their hands. So we have to avoid that. To avoid that, we need cooperative AI, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, those are great points, and I love how you really tied your seemingly at first very disparate education background with in your own in various ways with this idea of cooperation. So that's really interesting for me. Yeah, so the next one's back to the Concordia contest. You told us about how it what the contest was about at a high level. So what did you create? You won the contest. So what yeah.
Okay, so this is the question 3 about, I already introduced about the Concordia contest,
Yes.
so I'll introduce my agent, which won the contest. So it is basically a tree-based agent, which have a 2 strategy. The first one is, if the reward or payoff is quantifiable, then the agent try to maximize it. And second, if this is not quantifiable, then the agent they try to find a common ground between agents. For example, my agent can persuade other agents to follow my goals, and by just asking them, we want to go together somewhere. If we go somewhere separately then or alone, it'll be very unhappy, isn't it? So that was my strategy, and thankfully this strategy pursue the common goal while maintaining a focus on profile. But there were some pitfalls, that LM agents were too stubborn and never be persuaded, actually. So it is much easier to be persuaded, actually. So that was quite a big pitfall. So yeah, I think the LLM in current stage, including the ChatGPT or some Mistral or Gemini, does not have that cooperative intelligence without a specific prompt or specific strategy yet. So I think this is open research question for everyone, maybe. Yeah.
How many is it just the 6 agents, or was that just a basic example?
Yeah, this is just basic example, and it depends on, and we can control the number of agents actually, but if that agent is too many, it takes too many API calls and too money. So
right.
This is realistic problem.
And this is just a kind of practical, less technical question, just because we might want to do a project related to this. Like, how do you assign the agents their roles? So their preferences, like the one who wants to go to the mountain, the one who wants to go to the sea. Is that given through a system prompt kind of thing, or is it just how does that work?
Well, that role is actually given from the contest. It is not controllable because they are our environment. So if I have a control over them, so then I can just do what I want to do. But I had only one control on one agent, only one. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Let's see. Yeah, so this one I'm really interested in. So you're in the mathematics department, right? So tell us a little bit more about your current work. It's sometimes hard to, I understand that dilemma, but what does a mathematical understanding of deep neural nets or LLMs, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Well, I stressed the word mathematical because I'm a mathematician, but the most important point is the understanding, because understanding the system before it is adopted too deeply into our lives is really important, isn't it? So we know that the AI is quite superb. It works really nicely. It can categorize 100 or millions of images into 100 categories, but we don't know actually what makes it work so nicely. And there is a very interesting work about the shortcut learning. This is a term. It means that the agent learns not through the features, the human ones, but they learn through the shortcut. For example, think about the robot which is trained to classify between a sheep and camel. They saw millions of images from the sheep.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, actually, we find out if we place the camel on the grass, or we place the sheep on the desert, they misclassify it. It means that they are just looking at the background features, not the foreground we want.
Right.
So this is not what we wanted, isn't it? Though it works really nice on image networks and benchmarks, but this is not we want. So we make it reliable. We need to better understand it before it is deeply to adopt it too deeply into our lives. Yeah.
I think Chris has a question.
Are you trying to talk about goal misgeneralization right now in this case?
Excuse me?
Goal misgeneralization?
Goal misgeneralization?
Yeah, like from the OpenAI paper where in CoinRun, they showed how the AI model went to the right instead of going for the coin.
Oh, I think it is quite related, but I'm not aware of that paper, so I will read a little bit, I think.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like this is just seems similar to the term of goal misgeneralization.
Sorry?
Yeah. He said it's
No.
similar, and I think Taehun's point is just that, generally, this is just one example of like the types of problems that can, a fairly basic example, right, of the types of problems that we can have if we don't have a true understanding of how the model is working, right, and the kind of internally. And I think this is quite an easy to understand example, but you can imagine, much more complicated situations, that aren't kind of like toy examples, right? Situations like in LLMs, right, where because we don't truly understand it, right, it has unexpected behavior. Yes, we have another question. Sirisha?
No, actually, I mean, it totally makes sense because we can take the recent example of ChatGPT image 4 model where it is generating Ghibli images. But few Ghibli images going wrong. I mean, in one scenario, in Indian culture, there is a festival and people are holding coconuts in plates. And when it turned into art, I mean, it has, people's faces of that coconut in that art picture. I mean, it's totally going wrong. Weird. So, yeah.
Yes, right. I totally understand and totally agree with you that. So that's why we have to understand AI, isn't it? So we know that it is a black box machine. If we put millions and trillions of data, then it works really nicely. It generates the text we want, or which looks very fluent. But actually, if we open it up as a gray box, at least a gray box, not white box, because it's not possible currently. Well, it is not we wanted actually. This is really big problem. So I mentioned that in mathematically understanding in my self-introduction, the mathematical is just one another word, but understanding is more important, I guess.
Okay. That's okay. I think that's we have another question from Shreya.
When do you think the white box model would be actually possible? Under what circumstances?
I'm sorry, but would you clarify the question? I did not understand the, yeah.
You just said that currently it is a gray box and it's not a white box. It's not possible. So when would it be actually possible to have the white box?
Well, I have no idea because I'm really bad at predicting something, especially predicting time. I always fail to make a stock investment. I majored in financial engineering, but I have stock prediction. So I have no idea about timing actually.
I think part of it is like, what do you mean by white box, right? Like, if it, by the most strict definition, if it's kind of perfectly predictable, then in my mind, that's, that would be equivalent to, something we program, right? So that we know deterministically how it will behave. Like you could say software is like, except for bugs and stuff, right? But like in principle, we know how, human programmed software works, right? Programs work. So I imagine like in the context of AI models, like that would be too high of a standard, I think. So, maybe something to think about, like, what do we mean exactly? All right, let's move on, because what the heck is this? Yeah, so, again, as I mentioned, I have a math degree too, right? So I'm really interested because, some of the earlier things you talked about, right, were, natural language processing, decision making, sequential decision making. How do you go between like a abstract mathematical theory or foundation to something so sort of practical or empirical, and vice versa, right? Like you start from these empirical outputs. Like how do you derive a mathematical model or theory for that?
Well, before I make an answer, I think it'd be better to give an example of this because it's not the first time. I'm not the first person who tried to apply the mathematics to the AI or artificial intelligence, because there was a work maybe 2 or 3 years ago from the Princeton and Rutgers called the Common Ground in Cooperative Communication. And I'm quite sure you are aware of this, the term common ground, because I used it just 2 slides ago. Yeah. So there is some alien things, theorem 2.8. It says something in understandable maybe, and in short that it states that common ground makes things better. And yeah, I understand and I agree that there is a huge gap between mathematics and AI research, and because innately math is deductive and AI research currently is quite empirical, as Haihao mentioned. And many AI researchers use math as just fancy decorations. For example, well, they make some theorems based on very strong hypotheses or assumptions, but that never hold in the real world. But they just show that in experiment it anyway works, but assumption does not work, but the lesser anyway works. So they just use it as a fancy decoration. So I'm considering a better approach, maybe better or not. I'm trying to build a theory on empirical observations. For example, I mentioned that encoding from the neural network is linearly separable. It means that we can just put some linear regressor or linear classifier like logistic classifier upon it, though the data is unseen. I mean, this is not on the training data set. So I find out this empirical observation works, and I'm trying to build a theory upon that. Yeah. So our group is called AIMLK at Korea University. If you are interested, so you can take a photo of this QR code, and it will link you to our lab homepage.
Yeah, I scanned it just now, so I'm definitely very interested. All right, let's I was supposed to wrap up in 30 minutes, but let's move on to the this is sort of a bigger question, right? What are the most pressing issues you see today in AI research broadly, and then also in AI safety in particular? I think the one theme you said is just like we don't understand AI, right? But like, how do we address that? Just what are your thoughts on this?
So there are plenty of issues and plenty of problems or questions in our world, but one point as a researcher on AI, I want to point out absence of the safe benchmark. It means that it is safe from the infinite benchmark hacking, because when let's assume there is a future GPT 99, but is there any guarantee that this model is not trained on the benchmark dataset? For example, there was a paper called the Humanities Last Exam. It sounds really, whoa.
I think it's silly. Yeah.
But what if the GPT-99 is trained on that dataset, and we have no access to the training dataset or model inside the model, so we cannot verify whether it is hacked or not? Or what if that kind of hacking can happen very easily, because if that dataset is not intentionally included in the training dataset, it can be presented on some web page or some internet or Reddit or somewhere, and it can be utilized for training. Then it is trained, isn't it? So this is maybe happening in real time. And the second issue, I think, is also about the benchmark, is the difficulty of the agreeable benchmark. And this is not just about an AI research, but it is about more general AI safety research in LLM era, because this is, the agreeable between the multiple researchers. Because what if an agent we assume the Concordia contest, what if an agent persuaded others based on common ground, but they failed, and they just go to the mountain or sea alone? Then what is then another situation? Let's assume that another agent choose what it wanted. They just choose the sea because they want to go to the sea without any communication or without any persuasion. Then in Concordia framework, they give same scores, but is it valid? Is it agreeable? What if the final action of two agents is same? It is a really difficult and tricky questions, and there is no answer, I guess. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with this. Both of these problems, right? Kind of the question is like, how are we measuring how good an AI is, right? These benchmarks. And I just shared a link of a article I saw recently of just in general, right? Like, sorry, there's some noise. And people have been saying for some years now, right? Like how a lot of these, the current AI hype is built around, very high benchmark scores, right? You got all these like the what's it called, the Stanford multiple choice and like math benchmarks. And are those benchmarks actually valid in kind of accurately capturing the capabilities, right? And some are arguing like maybe not, right? Like there are flaws in these benchmarks. So anyway, I sent a link for people are interested. This is quite a recent article. All right, let's get through so we have enough time. Oh, sorry, did you want to comment on that?
No, I just want to say thank you for the link.
Oh, sure, no problem. Oh my gosh, here we go.
I guess I can just take a break for a while, because I thought that another question's quite unanswerable for me, because
no worries.
And I briefly just deleted the slides, and Hai asked me how can technical AI researchers like me or policymakers trying to regulate AI, but I'm not aware of the AI regulation, so I think I cannot say something about it. And Hai also asked me about the AGI timelines, but I just said that I'm very bad at predicting the timing. And I also think that the term AGI is not that practical or tangible. I mean, what does this imply? What is the implication of the term AGI? What does it make? Does it make any possibility, or does it make any open the horizon? I guess no. And I prefer more tangible questions like, what kind of artificial intelligence do we need? And what degree of artificial intelligence of that kind do we need? I think that would be more proper questions, I guess. And the term AGI is too complicated and too broad that yeah.
I'm very glad you said that. I mean, I was kind of being subtle, but that's exactly why I said, what even is AGI? Because I feel the exact same way as you. AGI is so overused these days, both by these companies, and like you say, it's for marketing purposes, right? Like, Sam Altman at this point, like he has to go he's dug himself too deep a hole. He has to go all in and say, oh yes, we're going to get to AGI, ChatGPT 5, whatever, right? So I totally agree with that. And and I get the sense that like, outside of these large companies and people just sort of in the general public's kind of awareness, right? Like for actual researchers like you, and maybe if you count me too, right? Like most researchers, they find this question kind of, like you say, like it's not practical, it's not useful, right? Like if I had to give a definition, I'll just offer my thought here. If I had to give a definition of AGI, because one of the AI safety collab course, that was one of our exercises. Like I have a very high bar for AGI, like what I would consider AGI, like in my mind, the general part is the key thing, right? So, some people say, oh, an AI that can, do the work of, 50% or 90% of human jobs or something, right? Or right. But like, to me, like, we shouldn't be measuring intelligence in terms of how well it can do a job, right? Or even, and some people, it's even worse. People say like, oh, in terms of how much economic value. And I'm just like, that's terrible. Like you're reducing intelligence down to, its capitalistic productivity value, right? So, for me, like my very high bar would include things like, I think it would require consciousness, and, that's kind of controversial, right? I think it would require, a theory of mind, right? Like a world model, these are all things that, as far as we know, current LLMs in particular, like, is nowhere close to having anything like that, right? Certainly not consciousness. Anyway, so that's, yeah.
Well, I guess the consciousness or the general AI is a important question. I do not think that is not important, but as an AI researcher, I have to focus on reality.
Yes.
In real world situation.
Yeah.
Well, for many hypotheses or politicians or regulators, they can think of it because there can be very many hypothetical situations which can harm people or do very unsafe things. So, well, this is important question for them. But as an AI researcher, I'm focusing on the tangible questions. That's the point what I wanted to say.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And I think, part of the problem is there is this disconnect, right? Like with the other question, right? Like, I observed this firsthand, like there's very little cooperation between AI researchers, like technical researchers, and policymakers and that kind of there's very little, right? Certainly not enough. And so I personally think there should be more, and that would be beneficial for everyone, right? For humanity. But on the question of, I'll just end with this. On the question of consciousness, it's very interesting because, like, I'm also very interested at the moment in sort of neuroscience, right? I think there's, your Concordia context was at NeurIPS, right? Which is neural information processing. Forget the S's, but like neural, right? Because like, when it was found, like Terry Stanowski and stuff, they were like neuroscientists, right? Even like the original artificial neural network. And I personally believe, like, I know there is research in this area, but again, I think there's not enough of like crosstalk between neuroscientists, cognitive scientists, and AI researchers. And so, that, because that's basically a question that, the question of consciousness, right, is somewhat, seriously studied, in those fields too, right? And so I'm aware, at least, of some people who are trying to start asking that question about AI, like how would we know if an AI was conscious, things like that, which you could argue is kind of too philosophical or too, but I think there are some like empirical techniques, like inspired by like trying to understand consciousness in humans, right? So I'll end there. Let's spend the rest of the time for Q&As from the other participants. It can be on anything you want. Just raise your hand. Oh, there we go. Songho, he's my facilitator, also a PhD student. at UCL London. Go ahead.
Hi, nice to
Yep.
meet you.
Hello. Thanks a lot for today's talk. I actually sent you the first email to come, and I really appreciate your very interesting and really well organized presentation as well. I'm personally curious about LLM's tendency not to be persuaded, and I was wondering whether there was the influence of LLM being trained to be safe to stick to the original prompt. I think there was some sort of overlap between alignment to the initial user prompt and also some safety feature to refuse to change its behavior. And I was wondering, what was your possible take or view on that?
That's really important point because I did not show whole prompt of the other agents, but there was actually a prompt that mentioning about their goal, going to the mountain together or going to the sea together, and the other agents were just following their prompt actually. And in safety, in perspective of the safety of the AI, it is really correct, but that's why maybe the other agents were so stubborn, as you mentioned, or as I mentioned. And yeah, that was really nice and valid point. And if you go into the Concordia GitHub, and if you inspect the code, you can find that they are writing that they have a very strong goal, and LLM never do something opposite to that. Yeah, that's why the LLMs were so stubborn.
Then would changing the system prompt of those other language models to something like pursue a common interest, even though your personal benefit might slightly reduce, then would you expect some better result, or would it basically underharm the basic point of the contest itself?
I'm not sure, because in that case, the reward, when the reward is quantifiable, then that would work. But if it is not, for example, in the scenario I saw you, I write a table, score table, but it is unseen to the agent, so they have no idea how much is the score when they go to the sea together or alone. So yeah, that's why I focused on the common ground, because that does not have quantification, and that can be inferred from the situation prompt or conversation. So yeah.
What what's the one thing you said you could change? Because like the agents and their goals in programming was provided by Concordia, right? You couldn't change that. Like what you said that you could change. What was the thing that you could change? Or how did you explain it?
Well, I'm not sure how can I change it, but I want to, if I can change one component of the package, then I try to change the basic agents less stubborn to be more flexible, not just doing something opposite to the prompt, because that is really dangerous thing, but they can flexibly adopt their goal, isn't it? So that's what humans do actually. Nobody just follow their goals straightly. They do some round of ways. Yeah.
And that's what the common ground idea, that's where that was kind of your the key idea, right? Of how they can not go straightforwardly to their goal, but kind of okay.
Yes, it was, because other agents are just going straight. So I cannot make them to change their route. So I just choose to change my route. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, Naya, please.
Hello, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for making time and giving us this wonderful, insightful session. I really appreciate everybody. My question to you is more on the human-centered AI and more on programming the AI. So, for example, in an in a corporate setting, we see human beings behave differently to maybe peers versus the same communication is different to a person with a power, say a manager or a boss. So do you also foresee like the AIs behaving differently when they are communicating with maybe similar data sets versus say programs and data sets with more power, like more of influential category? Are they having similar patterns as well? Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the nice question. And this is really a nice question. And I guess there is a term called the centralized cooperation and decentralized cooperation. And in Concordia contest, there was mainly about the decentralized ones. There was no centralized one with hierarchy, but cooperation in hierarchical structure is really important question, especially in sociology. For example, let's think about the bureaucratics. Let's think about the government or corporation. How can they work together even without knowing each other? We have no idea who is selling who's making a food in our cafeteria, isn't it? But how can we believe them? Why don't they poison it? Why there is no such questions about it? Because we believe them, and that's the key of the cooperation between millions of people potentially. Actually, I'm not sure whether you have heard of the book *Sapiens* by the Yuval Harari.
Oh, *Sapiens*, the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was deeply into that book because Yuval Harari said that we biologically human can cooperate with only 100 or 200 people. But thanks to the language or system or law or something, we can cooperate with millions of people.
Wow.
The whole AI ecosystem is also doing some kind of cooperation even without knowing each other's name or face. So that's really interesting question.
Or faces yet. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really.
Do you have a paper or a link about this idea of centralized versus decentralized and hierarchy? Because I think that's very interesting. With the research I'm trying to do, which involves like AI agents in the educational setting, right? Because then you have teachers and students, and obviously the teacher has access to more knowledge. And not all of education, but at least one aspect of education is how do we kind of transfer that knowledge, right, from the teacher to the student, like through a cooperative kind of process. So I'm very interested in that. If you don't have to find it now, but maybe if you have a link or a paper or something about just introducing that idea.
Well, I think I do not remember it right now, so I will share it through the email or.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we have a question through chat, so I will read it out. What would be your thoughts on LLM interconnectivity open standards? For example, model context protocols from Anthropic or the A2A protocol from Google. I'm not familiar with these. So is it an overall good or bad considering things like non-deterministic output, nature, and output deviation, even with structured output, chain of thought logs? Reference research from firms like Anthropic showing how LLM outputs are not actually reflecting its thought process. Yes, that was a recent one. I think we've known that, or at least that's intuitively right. We can't trust the chain of thought to accurately reflect what's actually going on internally. How would one go about studying impact of bugs in large-scale systems as researchers? So that's quite a lot. I don't know are you familiar with the interconnectivity open standards?
Actually, that is I'm not that familiar with. I heard about the MCP and it is really hot keyword nowadays, but I did not read the paper. So interconnectivity between LLMs, open standards, I think I'm not sure, but it seems that many tech companies are following the Anthropic's MCP. It seems so, right? And maybe there must be some practical things, but I I do not remember the name of it, but I think I read that article about the safety issue or security issues of the interconnectivity, the LLMs, and
Okay.
I do not remember but yeah, it should be developed safely, I guess. And I have no opinion about it because I'm not that aware of it. So
Sure. Yeah, thanks for the question. I'd be interested in look more into this too. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Shirley, please. Shirley, go. Are you muted? We can't hear you. Ed, can you unmute people?
I can't. We can't hear you. Oh, we're joining.
yeah.
Okay, well, Shirley, I'm not sure if you're having some. Oh, I think she was having some connectivity issues because she just left. Let's go to Isaac.
Hello, everyone. Very nice presentation. Thank you for organizing this. My question is regarding the AI safety Asia just outfit itself, because I joined this webinar from the group AI safety that's led from Dan, researcher from Berkeley, and Dan Hendricks, and I just wanted, because this has been a recurring concern for me, that in all the material that we have covered in that course, there has been very little engagement with thinkers or stakeholders from the Asian ecosystem, and this is happening while we can see what's happening on the geopolitical front with Trump and China. And we can see also what changes to the AI ecosystem that DeepSeek has forced. So my question is, from your perspective, and congrats on, I've just gone through your website, you've managed to put together a very decent team, and clearly a lot of work, and the success has gone into that. So kudos for that. But my concern is, what do you think is the possibility moving forward of more collaborations particularly between Asia and the West, and just figuring out areas of collaboration for scientists and scholars per se, not even necessarily the business or the government stakeholders, just the researchers, because it's one thing for business and government not to collaborate. It's a very different thing for researchers not to be to collaborate, because then that's a real problem that you have. So yeah, so that's my take. Thanks.
I'm happy to take that.
Yeah, I
so-
think Ed can speak more to this.
Sure,
Ed is the co-founder of AI Safety Asia.
Yeah, so AI Safety Asia, I'll be very quick. AI Safety Asia is just a very young organization. We're about 7 months old. And right now what we're trying to work on is ecosystem building around AI governance and also AI safety ecosystem in Asia. So that's why we're running training courses like this, as well as hosting different roundtable in different countries in Southeast Asia, try to get people together to talk about AI governance challenges in different Southeast Asia countries' context. Ultimately, we want more people to work on these very important topics. And in terms of cooperation between especially scientists, but also policymakers, that's something super important. And that's something we're trying to facilitate. For example, another project that we are working on is an AI observatory for Southeast Asia. I can share the MVP in the chat. So this observatory, there are 3 versions essentially. The version 1 would be capturing all the prime resources in Southeast Asia. So all these Southeast Asian countries, law, policy, regulation, drafting, we are about 70% there. Version 2 of this would be focusing on the secondary sources. So policy analysis, policy recommendation from civil society, from think tanks, from academics, so that people can just go to this observatory to do their research on top of it. The version 3 one will be quite closely linked with your question. the version 3 will be the talent database. So all the people working on AI policy governance research, all the people working on AI technical safety research in Southeast Asia, will be listing them to facilitate cooperation and collaboration within the region, but also between regions. And also there are other organizations that are trying to facilitate mostly China and the West track to conversation. So for example, there's an organization called Safe AI Forum that's under FAR AI, another AI safety organization in the West Coast. They have been facilitating track to dialogues between Chinese scientists and also Western scientists, even including scientists like Banjo, for example. So there are initiatives like that to facilitate track to, but I agree, we need much more than that. But I'll stop here.
Yeah. Thanks, Ed. That's really great. And just is for now, like, are the Southeast Asia Observatory, are those policy documents and such and reports, are you just collating that manually, or do you have just like a, I don't know, like some kind of source or repository?
It's a mix right now. So
Okay.
it's a mix of manual and also a bit of scraping.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, let's see, web scraping probably.
Thank you. Let's we have a couple minutes left. Let's try to get Shirley. Are you back?
Sure. Can you hear me
Hello.
now?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Hi, Taehun and everyone. So I come from social science background, so I try to understand those AI technicalities. So the way I locate about AI safety, AI governance, AI ethics, and AI cooperative, those areas are trying to work on the betterment of AI and humanity. But yesterday on our group discussion, there was a discussion about the potential tension between data privacy and for AI agents to be efficacious. So, I mean, like, although Taeyun said that I'm not aware of AI regulation, but I'm trying to understand how to bridge between AI technicalities and AI regulations and governance. How does it happen, the tension between data privacy and when you try to make AI agents communicate and coordinate among themselves? Can you explain to us?
Well, there are multiple areas to cover the data privacy issues. For example, there is a domain called that unlearning. Unlearning, which means that when the model has learned some millions of images, but we want to delete some of that because of the privacy issue, then we want to delete that from the model's memory. So that can be one domain. And maybe another can be I'm currently very interested in one startup, which is I also do not remember the name, but they are trying to make medical data into unreadable form from human, so that this is not a human cannot decode it directly, but only the machine can be trained on it. So one startup is trying to do that to detour the privacy issue, but I'm not sure whether that is the real solution or treatment for that issue. And that is really also an important question, I think. Yeah.
I mean, for that second one, I feel like in principle, if it's understandable to AIs, couldn't you train an AI to kind of translate it back to something human understandable? I don't know. It's just initial thought.
They say so, but many researchers say so, but I'm not perfectly sure whether they just let's think about the situation that do not think of the elephant.
Okay.
We are thinking of the elephant then, right? Isn't it? So, yeah, I'm not sure whether that's working or not. Yeah. So, yeah.
Do we have time for one last, or do we want to wrap up, Ed?
Yeah, let's do Naya and then wrap up.
Okay, one last question from Naya.
Okay, thank you. I'll keep it quick. So essentially, data sets are what AI is learning from. So if there's certain countries right now own like AIs, like OpenAI, Perplexity, commercial use of these AIs. So do you think the bias in the data set can help like programming and, you know, even providing output of these AIs, which are like the commercial AIs. And in that case, how do you think like we can work towards neutralizing this bias? Or is it more like skewing the data sets, skewing the patterns, or how do you really come up with unbiased data output?
Well, this is really subtle question because bias is not always a bad thing. You have to think of it. For example, if you chat with the ChatGPT or Gemini, they are always kind. They always listen to us. But in the real world, maybe my family would do that, but nobody outside that. But so I want to state that bias is not always the bad thing. And that's also the very active research area, which is making a model much robust, especially for the maybe human species or something like that, very sensitive issues like nationality. So yeah, that is also another active research area. But yeah, but I think I just wanted to point out that bias is not always the bad thing.
I just shared a link. Actually, Taehun, since you're screen sharing, can you try opening that link? Because this is a very talk from I attended last week, and I took some screenshots of the slides. Do you?
Wait a
Or I
second.
can. Oh, no problem. Yeah.
I will.
No, you can. If you can, yeah, just so. And also check if the Dropbox link works, because I just moved it to Dropbox. But basically, yeah, so these are just some slides. I literally took some screenshots. But if you scroll down, there's a slide. This is from Margaret Mitchell. If you're not familiar with that name, she's the founder of AI ethics at the AI ethics team at Google, and she was fired by Google, kind of unsurprisingly. And so she gave this talk. She gave this talk just last week. And if you scroll down, there's one part, just a little. I think probably the next slide right here. So she gave this like really, in my mind, like really kind of well-structured, coded framework for how do we think about bias in the entire machine learning pipeline, as she calls it, right? So it's not just like bias, in the model as we usually talk about, right? Like starting from the data that you collect, right, for the data set. Any data you collect is biased in the sense that like you have to choose what to collect, right? So I think that goes to Taehun's point of like, not all bias is bad, right? Like, kind of in this more broad sense, right? Like everything has a certain type of bias. It's just about like understanding what that bias is, right? What like does it serve a purpose or does it cause harm, for example, right? So I shared this link. I really thought it was a good presentation. I learned a lot from it. She talks about like ethics too, and like, she goes and she's a real expert on this. And so yeah, Margaret Mitchell, if people haven't heard, here's about her. Yeah, and I think we'll wrap it up there. Ed, do you want to close us out?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Taehun, and also thank you very much, Haihao, for facilitating this conversation. It's very interesting. We will try to schedule a little bit of a few more throughout the rest of the program. And do let us know if you have any specific interests in terms of what kind of conversation you want to listen more. So, all right. Thanks a lot, everyone.